Welcome to today's Explainer. We are exploring a truly pivotal moment in history right now, an event back in the year 1187 that completely subverted everything people thought they knew about medieval warfare. And just a quick note before we jump in, we're keeping things focused entirely on the primary texts and the raw data for this Explainer, so there won't be any portraits or drawings of people today. We are going to dive strictly into the cold, hard facts, the numbers, and the actual historical texts to grasp exactly how the liberation of Jerusalem by Salahuddin Ayyubi really unfolded. Okay, let's dive right into this stark historical contrast. So, back in 1099, the Crusaders first entered Jerusalem, and according to the historical texts of the time, they outright massacred the Muslim and Jewish inhabitants, which kicked off nearly a century of occupation. But fast forward to October 12th, 1187, Lord Balian of Ibelin, who is the Crusader commander, surrenders the city. Now, based on the brutal warfare of that era, you would absolutely expect massive retaliation, right? I mean, it just seems inevitable. But Saladin enacted zero revenge for the events of 1099, nor for the subsequent atrocities committed over the past century. Instead, he completely flipped the script and granted safety. Now, you might be wondering, why would a military commander make such a radically unexpected choice? Well, to understand that, we have to look to the primary text that drove his actions. The Quran explicitly states, "Do not let the hatred of a people lead you to injustice. Be just." The source material notes that Salahuddin was directly mirroring the footsteps of the Prophet Muhammad, who, upon his peaceful entry into Makkah, famously did not enact revenge on those who had violently persecuted him and his followers for over 2 decades. So this textual philosophy wasn't just a suggestion, it was the absolute anchor for his clemency. Moving into Section 2, the ransom terms and logistics. While the ideological foundation here was deeply rooted in mercy, the actual execution of a massive surrender like this required tangible logistical reality. After nearly a century of occupation, power finally transferred back in October 1187. But, it wasn't just an immediate, chaotic, free-for-all exit. Salahuddin established a highly structured 40-day ransom window. This was a literal ticking clock. Whoever could pay their ransom within this specific time frame would be guaranteed safe passage to their destination. Let's look at the actual economics of this ransom, because they were highly specific. It was set at 10 dinars per man, and that's whether you were rich or poor, 5 dinars per woman, 4 for boys, and 1 dinar for infants. According to historian Dr. As-Salabi, senior commanders were stationed at every single gate just to keep track of these transactions. Now, by the standards of the day, these were relatively small, stipulated amounts. However, for a great many of the commoners, these amounts were still completely out of reach. So, the absolutely crucial point here is this number, 30,000 dinars. This was a massive lump sum paid by the Crusader commander, Lord Balian. He paid this amount specifically to secure the release of some of the remaining poor and destitute folks who couldn't afford those individual rates we just talked about. But here's the catch. As large as this number is, it still only covered a fraction of the lower classes trapped inside the city. Which brings us right back to that ticking clock, 40 days. What actually happened when the clock ran out? Well, the agreement was strict. Anyone left behind after 40 days without a paid ransom automatically became a prisoner of the Muslims. Thousands of Crusader civilians suddenly found themselves completely unable to pay, facing imminent captivity. Section 3, Wealth and Abandonment. This brings us to a really fascinating shift. We're moving from the external battle to the internal social dynamics of the Crusaders during this immensely tense period. Historical texts record that not one of the rich Crusaders did anything to ransom the poor. Seriously. Patriarch Heraclius, a major religious leader, left Jerusalem with vast, incredible wealth, paying absolutely no attention to anyone else. The text suggests this exposes a deep lack of family or social ties among the Crusaders of that time. The prisoners left behind were this mixture of different European ethnic groups and Western mercenaries who had originally traveled east to escape serfdom, and when push came to shove, they were completely abandoned by their own elite. This disgraceful abandonment by the Crusader elite stood in incredibly sharp contrast to the structured terms provided by Salahuddin, and it absolutely did not go unnoticed by European contemporaries. In fact, an English writer of the era, after directly criticizing the patriarch for hoarding all his wealth, was literally forced to express profound admiration. He wrote, "This was an opportunity for the Muslim king to teach the Christians the meaning of tolerance." Bringing us to Section 4, Unprecedented Acts of Mercy. Okay, let's move forward and see how this builds, because we are now heading into the emotional climax of our explainer. What happened after those 40 days defied all the standard rules of medieval conquest? It actually started internally. Saladin's brother al-Malik al-Adil asked to be given 1,000 of the poor Crusaders so he could personally release them for the sake of Allah. And Saladin agreed. This one humane action triggered a massive wave. The patriarch and Balian, seeing this happen, came forward and requested the exact same thing, and Saladin let those captives go too. Finally, he ordered his guards to proclaim in the streets that any crusader unable to pay due to old age should go to the rear gate, where they were systematically released from sunrise until nightfall. And this wave of tolerance extended deeply into the ranks of the emirs and even the common folk. The emir of Braira requested the release of 500 Armenians who had come to Jerusalem to worship. Emir Ali Kujak requested the release of 1,000 Armenians from Edessa. Salahuddin approved both of these requests. But perhaps most strikingly, and this is a detail that really stands out, he allowed weeping wives and daughters of killed or captured knights to literally point out their captive husbands for release. For the widows and orphans left behind, he granted sustainment directly from his own personal wealth, literally providing for them out of his own pocket until they began to pray for him.
Section 5. The Philosophy of Tolerance.
To conclude our narrative today, we really have to examine the underlying religious philosophy that mandated this historical protection and shaped all these remarkable events. This verse from Surah al-Hajj explains that if aggression isn't repelled, destruction would claim places of worship. And this brilliantly illustrates a key concept. The text fundamentally establishes the protection of all religious sanctuaries. We're talking monasteries, churches, synagogues, and mosques alike. It was this specific, foundational textual mandate that guided the structured, highly tolerant approach to securing the city. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. We all know the saying that history is almost always written by the victors. So what does it mean when the victor's primary legacy, one recorded and verified even by their absolute fiercest adversaries, is a legacy of unprecedented mercy? It forces us to entirely rethink the nature of historical conquests, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.